Live from our studios on Florida's Suncoast, this is ABC7 News at 7. Your Suncoast.
Democratic presidential candidates go head-to-head in New Hampshire. Bernie apologizes. Hillary calls Trump an ISIS recruiter, and Martin O'Malley totes his record as governor. Does the debate even affect the field? Our roundtable when we come back. The Democratic presidential field is narrowed down to 3 candidates: Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Martin O'Malley. On Saturday night, the 3 took the stage in New Hampshire for their final debate of the year. But did the face-off have any effect on this race? And joining us now for more on that is Rita Ferrandino, the treasurer of the Democratic Party of Sarasota County, and Christian Ziegler, the state committeeman for the Republican Party of Sarasota. Thank you both for joining us. And why don't we start with the big apology. On the eve of this debate came news that the Sanders campaign looked at voter file data from a belonging to Hillary Clinton, and that that is a database where campaigns track their supporters and their contact information. It's very valuable, and it's not good when one campaign looks at the data file of another campaign. So when the debate started, Senator Sanders was very quick in terms of apologizing to Senator Clinton. Secretary Clinton. Why don't we take a look?
Does Secretary Clinton deserve an apology tonight?
Yes, I apologize.
Secretary Clinton, do you accept?
I want to apologize to my supporters. This is not the type of campaign that we run. And if I find anybody else involved in this, they will also be fired.
Now, some of Senator Sanders' staffers were angry that he actually apologized, saying that in this context, nobody should apologize. But, Christian, what do you make of that?
I think when you look at it, there's really 2 issues going on here. Obviously, the access to the data of another candidate, it's always a serious thing, but when you really look at it, it was the vendor that was probably at fault, and they actually pushed that data into Bernie Sanders' camp and gave them access. And then, unfortunately, obviously, one of his staffers went in there and clicked around and looked at the stuff. But the second part that I think really needs to be talked about is, again, the Democratic Party, they were quick to cut off his access and really cut him at the knees when it comes to the Democratic data, to the database. And I really just think it showcases that they've picked their candidate. The Democratic Party wants Hillary Clinton. They're going to do everything they can to protect her, but also help her in any way that they can.
Is it the stacked deck, Rita?
I wouldn't say that. First of all, I think Bernie Sanders' apology was sincere, and it was very appropriate that he did it during the debate. They handled it and moved forward very quickly in that debate, talking about the really important issues that are facing Americans today. The second thing is that the DNC has ordered an independent audit, so we will get to the bottom of this. And what's very important is that the vendor will not be doing that again.
Imagine for a moment if it was the Clinton campaign that accessed the Sanders data file. Christian, you would have Republicans who would be making hay of this, wouldn't you?
Well, of course, exactly. I think that would be a big issue. And the question is would they cut Hillary Clinton off within hours of it actually happening and with it being a staff member's fault? I don't think the Democratic Party would really cut her out of the data, and I think that's what they did here. And I do feel bad for Bernie Sanders. When you look at this debate, where it was scheduled, they had a very low viewership, and I think Democratic Party is doing everything they can to protect her.
FYI, viewership, it's estimated 6.7 million people watched the debate Saturday night, as opposed to 18 million of the last GOP debate, both down from their previous debates. Let's get to the issue of Donald Trump, because the other big headline out of this debate was Secretary Clinton saying that ISIS was making recruiting videos featuring Donald Trump's war on Muslims. Let's take a look at some of the talk about that last night.
We must never surrender them to terrorists, must never surrender our American values to racists, must never surrender them to the fascist pleas of billionaires with big mouths.
Somebody like a Trump comes along and says, I know the answers. The answer is that all of the Mexicans, they're criminals and rapists. We got to hate the Mexicans. Those are your enemies. We hate all the Muslims because all of the Muslims are terrorists. We got to hate the Muslims.
We also need to make sure that the really discriminatory messages that Trump is sending around the world don't fall on receptive ears. He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter.
First off, I want to correct myself. I said Donald Trump's war on Muslims. He never declared war on Muslims, but he did say a lot of other things. Just like the issue about Trump saying that thousands of Muslims in Jersey City were cheering the day that the World Trade Center collapsed. There is no video out there that has been produced yet of ISIS using a recruiting video featuring Donald Trump. Rita, is this a problem for Secretary Clinton?
Oh, it's not a problem at all. It was just, a quick, entertaining second during the debate. What I think is much more important to talk about is the very substantive proposal she put in place of policy actions on how we're going to keep America safe and how we're going to work to defeat ISIS.
Christian, Donald Trump is demanding for an apology from Secretary Clinton. Should she?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you have a major presidential candidate here that's most likely going to win the Democratic nomination. She's making false accusations like this. Really, it's lying when you look at it. And if you look at the video, I mean, she said there's video of Donald Trump. They're using it for recruiting. Actually, a recruiting video came out today, and her husband was in that video, and they were using.
But thousands of Muslims were not cheering the fall of the World Trade Center in Jersey City. There's been no evidence of that. Donald Trump has not yet apologized for that.
Well, that's a far more substantive issue, in my opinion, than a 3-second that we just saw on the debate prep time. I mean, it was simply a statement that.
And Donald Trump was referencing an article that was out there that ended up being retracted later on. There were video of people around the world doing it.
Not in Jersey City.
Yeah, but he was referencing an article where a major newspaper published an account of that happening. Okay. And here you have a Democratic presidential candidate looks in the camera, looks at the voters, and says a complete outright lie to cause chaos and cause...
All right, hold on one second. We have a lot more to get to tonight, and we'll get back to it in just in 1 minute. We'll be right back.
Tonight at 11 on ABC7, your Suncoast News.
Welcome back. We're talking about Saturday's Democratic presidential debate, and let's get right back into it. Let's talk about national security, because the whole tenor of this campaign in general has changed from an economic debate to terrorism, especially after the Paris bombings. It was the center of the debate on Saturday night, and let's take a little bit of a look about that.
And I say this with due respect, that I worry too much that Secretary Clinton is too much into regime change and a little bit too aggressive without knowing what the unintended consequences might be.
But I'll tell you what would have happened if we had not joined with our European partners and our Arab partners to assist the people in Libya. You would be looking at Syria. If the United States does not lead, there is not another leader. There is a vacuum, and we have to lead if we're going to be successful.
Now, let me ask you about this, because Secretary Clinton also said, in terms of some of the changes that President Obama has made to this fight, that we are close to where we need to be in the fight against ISIS. And Jeb Bush tweeted out after that to Hillary Clinton, we are not where we need to be in the fight against ISIS. Did she open herself up there, Rita?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton certainly has a strong legacy of strong work in the Middle East. She certainly is the person who is most prepared to be commander-in-chief of the U.S., and I think that she has a wealth of knowledge about foreign affairs, foreign policy, and you can see that in all of the policy that she has been bringing to the table.
Christian, I know you want to respond to that, but let me ask you this. As I mentioned, does this debate undercut Senator Sanders' argument in terms of this debate, because he is not known for his foreign policy passion? He is, like it or not, known for his debate about income inequality.
And obviously that's his main focus. Being commander-in-chief is a lot more than that. But really, I think when you look at the entire Democratic side, they're very weak when it comes to national security. When you look at Hillary Clinton, the Obama administration, it's laughable to see in that clip that she says the United States needs to lead, because we have not been leading. And the president has been a failed leader. He called ISIS JV. He said they're contained. We had an attack just hours later. You have Secretary Clinton say we're right where we need to be with ISIS. And I think you look at just this history of the Obama administration, our #1 national threat is climate change. This is just days after we have an attack on our homeland. And I just think that, you know, the Democratic side, they have a lot to learn, and she's Secretary of State. She has zero record when you look at her record.
She has been.
I would not say that she has zero record as Secretary of State.
What's some of her accomplishments?
Well, they're vast, and we'll come back and do another show on that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because the perception is that she was the more hawkish member of the Obama cabinet, and that her positions in terms of a no-fly zone over Syria is closer to what many of the Republicans are saying than many in the Democratic Party.
And maybe so, but unfortunately, records matter. And she was Secretary of State of this country under the Obama administration. She has a seat at the table, and she didn't get anything done. Actually, she's made it worse. If you look at ISIS, they've grown under her watch. They grew, and now we're at a point where they have a lot of land in the Middle East, and now they're threatening us in our homeland.
I don't think that you... Okay.
Well, let's just move on, because we're running out of time, and I do want to get to the issue of gun control, which continues to be a central focus of the Democratic debate. Let's take a look at the clip here.
Excuse me, no.
Governor,
No,
you know, we have to abide by the rules here. We'll call on you here shortly, but I do want to pick up on something.
Actually passed comprehensive gun safety legislation with a ban on combat assault weapons, David.
Do not tell me
That
I have not shown courage in standing up to the gun people, in voting to ban assault weapons, voting for instant background checks, voting to end the gun show loophole.
Guns in and of themselves, in my opinion, will not make Americans safer. We lose 33,000 people a year already to gun violence.
I want to get to two things, and we only have about a minute left, but at least in terms of the Democratic primary voter, they are overwhelmingly for more gun control than we have now. Do both of you think that Senator Sanders, again, is at a disadvantage because he comes from a state where there are very little in terms of gun control laws, and that as a senator, he has had to not make that a priority? Rita?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton was very clear during the debate to call Bernie Sanders out on not passing or being more proactive in getting stronger legislation, and I think that she was differentiating herself to Democratic primary voters with gun control.
Christian, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to remember that guns don't kill people. People do. This is an issue, and that needs to be talked about. It's an important issue, but we need to remember what the Second Amendment is, and we need to protect it.
Rita? Just one final word, just to respond to Christian on that.
Well, I think that we all agree that we need to be talking about gun control, and we need to figure out what's going to keep America safe.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks. And that is all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.